It's crazy to think, but it has been 30 years since we last saw Axel Foley saving the day at Wonderworld in what would ultimately be a franchise-killing mission. But Eddie Murphy's back and his iconic character once again for Beverly Hills Cop Axel F, now streaming on Netflix. I was a little bit apprehensive about this one, but I've seen it. There were some things I really enjoyed and some aspects that failed a bit. So let's get into the good, the bad, and the everything in between on Beverly Hills Cop Axel F.
Watch your ass out there, okay?
I'm gonna be fine. They love me in Beverly Hills.
What's up out there, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all having a fantastic day. If you are new here, welcome to Movies Never Say Die. I'm Anthony DeJoya. This is your home for 80s and 90s retro movie content, and today we're diving into a sequel of one of the 80s most iconic franchises that essentially killed itself in the 90s. I went into this new sequel with an open mind despite my worries, and overall I do think it was a good time. I used to be a film critic, but I've always been a movie geek first, so this review will be broken down into two pieces, first from the viewpoint of just the pure movie lover, and from the other more of a critical perspective. Now, there's no denying I loved the first two cop films, and I love Murphy's comedic excellence in his portrayal of Axel Foley. I think it's fantastic comedic cinema. Beverly Hills Cop has always been known for its comedy, its action, and its music, and for that aspect, Axel F does kick off with a bang, and it really does give you all that you could ask for right out of the gate. The snarky charm from Foley is delivered almost immediately. There's a high-energy chase through Detroit in a snowplow as a modernization of the song Shakedown kicks in, so only a few minutes in, Axel F really is, I think, riding at full speed with a blend of nostalgia and new. Murphy's dropping comical lines, he's ripping through the city in a snowplow, destroying property and cars and dodging gunfire. The music is taking you back in time, and it's all really an engaging ride that's very similar to the truck full of cigarettes in the beginning of Beverly Hills Cop 1. This leads right into the first seed of the plot being planted to bring Foley out to Beverly Hills, which incorporates his daughter into the mix. There's another quick but comical chase sequence involving a parking meter car with all the action set to a newer version of Neutron Dance. So, I mean, I gotta give it to this movie for really laying out a solid first act with the familiar elements that just created the groundwork for the franchise being delivered right out of the gate. From there, however, the pacing does start to drag a bit as it begins to introduce its collection of characters and its sprinkling of subplots. These story layers and character types are all things that we've seen before, so when you can pretty much predict where specific things will ultimately go, the meandering through expositional dialogue and plot beats actually makes a bulk of the middle of this movie kind of boring. There are comical bits and a handful of amusing moments littered in. Surge makes his appearance, which is fun, but for the majority of this movie, it kind of feels like it's going nowhere. And all of that doesn't mean that I think Axel F is a bad movie. It's just a very mid movie where you can easily sit through it and turn your brain off to engage just enough in the surface level story to take the ride of comedy, nostalgia, and action. I will admit, when the action is kicking, this movie is a surprising amount of fun and much better than I was expecting. And I think despite kind of knowing what the outcome is going to be, the action-packed finale is still a good time. So while I had hoped the movie would have been better, it's still a much more enjoyable experience than Beverly Hills Cop 3 was, for sure. Now, on a critical side, this movie certainly does have its issues. First off would just be the lighting of the film overall, which was not good. The characters are routinely placed with the major light source to their sides or sometimes behind them, and even during the daytime scenes, this movie feels dark and just really lacking any visually artistic flair. The characters just have no pop. The direction and the cinematography are also extremely basic. Scenes are just framed up and angled like so many other movies that we've seen, most of which are on TV, which visually is kind of what Axel F looked like, a very polished, made-for-TV movie. I won't deny the action itself is very well staged and competently shot. These sequences do get the energy up effectively, but the quiet storytelling moments just lack any sort of cinematic feel. From my research of director Mark Malloy, this looks to be his first full feature film, and you can certainly see that he's stuck to the basics, which is not really something you should be doing in a known IP with a pre-built-in tone and atmosphere. The other main issue I had was just with the writing overall. The trio behind this film does have a solid resume of films, but it just didn't translate well here. The subplot of Murphy and his daughter feels very contrived because of the exposition-infused dialogue they're given, and really all the interactions between the characters feels a bit too on the nose and too deliberate, and while there are solid spots of humor that had me laughing, it's not really able to accomplish being a funny film overall because the storytelling moments are just too much of a drag due to their recycled feel. So where this story does have its plug-and-play pieces, it still worked to connect the humor, the action, and nostalgia, but the screenplay was a weakness for sure, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Taylor Page and Kevin Bacon all having their brief spots, but ultimately just being capable of adding much more to these characters that all feel a bit too blatant in their piece of the plot. So overall, while this is a serviceable action comedy and it was a good time seeing the gang back together, it should have been better. It's still better than many of the nostalgia-fueled sequels, remakes, and reboots we've been getting of the 80s and 90s IPs we know and love. So in the end, I'll give Beverly Hills Cop Axel F a solid C+. And that wraps up my review of Beverly Hills Cop Axel F. Let me know what you guys thought of this movie down in the comments. If you've had a chance to watch it yet, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I greatly appreciate your viewership. It really does mean the world to me. Be on the lookout for Volume 7 of my Forgotten 80s movie series coming very soon. I hope to see you guys all there. And until then, movies never say die.
This is Jack Burton in the Pork Chop Express, and I'm talking to whoever's listening out there.
Flag of war. You gotta become war.
I suppose we have to register you as a lethal weapon.
You trying to say Jesus Christ can't hit a curveball?